When the storm comes, most people try to control the wind. But wisdom teaches us something different. You do not need to control the storm. You only need to steady your mind. Your mind is like water. When it is disturbed, it cannot reflect clearly. But when it is calm, it becomes a mirror able to see truth, not illusion. And in life, clarity is more powerful than force. Many believe calmness means weakness. This is not true. Calmness is strength in its purest form. It is the ability to stand in chaos without becoming part of it. It is the quiet power of knowing that not everything deserves your reaction. Every situation you face is not testing your circumstances, it is testing your mind. When someone speaks harshly, when plans fall apart, when fear arises, the question is not why is this happening to me? The real question is, can I remain steady within this moment? Because the moment you lose your calm, you lose your direction. Train your mind like a warrior trains for battle, but not to fight others, to master yourself. And the first step is awareness. Notice your thoughts, but do not chase them. Notice your emotions, but do not become them. You are not your anger, not your fear, not your stress. These are visitors. You are the host. And what does a wise host do? It does not fight the guest, it simply observes, understands, and lets it pass. Return to your breath, again and again. In every difficult moment, your breath is your refuge. It brings you back from the noise of the world into the stillness of your being. One deep breath can create a space where reaction once lived. In that space, you gain freedom. Understand this. Life will not become easier just because you wish it to. Challenges will come. People will disappoint you. Situations will change without your permission. But if your mind remains calm, nothing can truly disturb you, because peace is not found in the outside world, that is cultivated within. When your mind is calm, your decisions become wiser. Your words become kinder. Your actions become more precise. You no longer act from impulse, you act from understanding. And this is how transformation begins. So do not wait for a peaceful life to be calm. Be calm, and you will create a peaceful life. Train your mind every day, not only in silence, but in difficulty. Especially in difficulty. Because that is where true mastery is revealed. One day, you will face a moment that once would have shaken you. But this time, you will remain steady. You will breathe. You will observe. And you will respond with clarity instead of chaos. And in that moment, you will realize the storm never had power over you. Only your mind did. Most people believe calmness is something you are either born with or without. They look at others who remain composed under pressure and assume that is just their nature. But this belief quietly limits growth. Calmness is not a fixed trait, it is a trainable skill, just like strengthening the body or sharpening the intellect. And like any skill, it requires patience, repetition, and conscious effort. In the beginning, the mind resists. It is used to reacting instantly, jumping to conclusions, clinging to emotions, and amplifying small disturbances into large storms. This is not because the mind is flawed, but because it has not been trained. An untrained mind behaves like an untamed horse. It runs wherever it pleases, often dragging you along with it. But through steady practice, even the wildest horse can learn discipline, and even the most restless mind can learn stillness. Training calmness begins with awareness. Before you can change your reactions, you must first see them clearly. Notice how quickly irritation arises when things do not go your way. Observe how your thoughts race when uncertainty appears. This observation is not meant for judgment, but for understanding. When you see the pattern, you begin to separate yourself from it. You realize that your reactions are not permanent. Truths, they are habits, and habits can be reshaped. At first, the progress feels small. You may still feel anger, stress, or anxiety, but there will be brief moments where you pause instead of reacting. These moments are powerful. They are signs that you are beginning to take back control. Do not underestimate them. A single second of awareness can prevent a chain of unnecessary suffering. Consistency is the key. Calmness is not built in one day of practice, just as strength is not built in one day at the gym. It is developed through daily effort, through choosing patience when impatience feels easier, through choosing silence when reaction feels tempting, through returning to your breath again and again. Each time you do this, you are strengthening a new pathway in your mind. There will be days when you fail, moments when emotions overwhelm you and you react without thinking. This is part of the training. Failure does not mean you are incapable, it means you are learning. What matters is that you return to the practice, without frustration, without self-criticism. Growth happens not in perfection, but in persistence. Over time, something begins to shift. Situations that once triggered you no longer have the same power. Your mind starts to create space where there was once only reaction. you begin to respond with clarity instead of impulse. This is the result of training, not luck, not personality, but deliberate effort. And eventually, calmness becomes natural. Not because you were born with it, but because you cultivated it. You built it moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. So do not label yourself as someone who gets stressed easily or someone who cannot stay calm. These are not identities, they are temporary conditions. What you practice daily becomes who you are. If you practice calmness, you will become calm. It is as simple and as powerful as that. In the rush of life, the mind is constantly pulled in different directions toward the past, with its regrets, and toward the future, with its uncertainties. Rarely does it remain where life is actually happening, in the present moment. This is why, in times of stress or confusion, the mind feels scattered and overwhelmed. But there is something always available to bring you back. Something simple yet profoundly powerful: your breath. Your breath is not just a biological function, it is a bridge between the body and the mind. When your emotions become intense, notice what happens to your breathing. It becomes shallow, fast, uneven. The body reflects the disturbance of the mind. But this connection works both ways. If the mind can disturb the breath, then the breath can also calm the mind. This is why returning to your breath is not a small practice, it is a fundamental one. The beauty of the breath is that it is always with you. You do not need a special place, a special time, or any external condition. In the middle of noise, in the middle of conflict, even in the middle of chaos, you can pause and take a single conscious breath. And in that moment, you interrupt the cycle of reaction. When you bring your attention to your breath, something shifts. The mind, which was once lost in thought, begins to settle. It has something steady to hold on to. The breath becomes an anchor, grounding you in the present moment, not in what has already happened, not in what might happen, but in what is happening right now. And in the present moment, there is clarity. At first, the practice may feel difficult. The mind will wander, thoughts will continue to arise. You may feel like nothing is changing. But the goal is not to stop thoughts completely. The goal is to return, gently and patiently, to the breath each time the mind drifts. This act of returning is the training. Each return strengthens your ability to focus, to center yourself, to remain steady. Think of it like this: every time you notice your mind wandering and bring it back to your breath, you are building awareness. And awareness is the foundation of calmness. In difficult situations, the breath becomes your refuge. When anger begins to rise, before speaking, take a slow, deep breath. When fear appears, instead of resisting it, breathe through it. When stress builds, pause and allow your breath to lengthen and soften. These small actions create space where you can choose your response instead of being controlled by your reaction. Over time, your relationship with your breath deepens. It is no longer something you only remember in moments of struggle. It becomes a constant companion, a quiet guide that keeps you centered throughout the day. You begin to move through life with greater awareness, less tension, and more presence. And then you realize something important. Calmness was never far away. It was always within reach, carried in each breath you take. So whenever you feel lost, overwhelmed, or unsettled, do not search outside for immediate answers. Return to something simpler. Return to your breath. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Again and again. Because within that simple rhythm lies a powerful truth: the more you connect with your breath, the more you connect with the stillness within yourself. Most of the chaos in life is not created by events themselves, but by how quickly and unconsciously we react to them. A single word, a small inconvenience, an unexpected delay, these are often neutral in nature. Yet the mind, conditioned by habit, immediately assigns meaning, judgment, and emotion. This instant reaction is what transforms a simple moment into inner turmoil. Reaction is fast, automatic, and often blind. It does not pause to understand, it only seeks to respond. And because it arises from conditioning rather than clarity, it usually leads to more confusion, more tension, and more regret. When you react without awareness, you are no longer in control, the situation is controlling you. But there is another way to meet life, and that is through awareness. Awareness is the space between what happens and how you respond. It is subtle, but it is powerful. In that small space, you are no longer a prisoner of your impulses. You become a conscious observer. You see what is arising within you: anger, frustration, fear, but instead of immediately acting on it, you simply notice it. This noticing changes everything, because the moment you are aware of your reaction, you are no longer fully identified with it. You begin to realize, this is anger arising, instead of I am angry. This shift may seem small, but it creates distance. And in that distance, there is freedom. Freedom to choose. Without awareness, every situation pulls you into a cycle. Someone criticizes you, you react with defensiveness. Something goes wrong, you react with frustration. Over time, these patterns become so familiar that they feel like your identity. But in truth, they are just repeated habits. Awareness breaks this cycle. When you are aware, you start to see the pattern. Before it fully unfolds, you notice the tension building in your body, the thoughts forming in your mind. And because you see it early, you have a choice to follow the reaction or to let it pass. Letting it pass does not mean suppressing your emotions. It means allowing them to exist without giving them control over your actions. You acknowledge what you feel, but you do not become it. You give yourself the space to respond with clarity instead of impulse. This space is where calmness is born. At first, it may only appear for a brief moment, a pause before speaking, a breath before reacting. But even this small pause is powerful. It interrupts the automatic chain of reaction and opens the door to a different outcome. With practice, this space grows wider. Situations that once triggered immediate reactions begin to feel less intense. You find yourself observing more and reacting less. You begin to understand that not everything requires a response, and not every thought deserves your attention. This understanding brings a deep sense of stability, because when you are no longer reacting to everything, your energy is no longer scattered, your mind becomes clearer, your emotions become more balanced. You are able to navigate challenges with a steady presence instead of being overwhelmed by them. Life does not become free of difficulties. People will still behave in ways you do not expect. Circumstances will still change without warning. But your relationship with these experiences transforms. Instead of being pulled in every direction, you remain centered. And this is the true power of awareness. It does not remove the storm, but it prevents you from becoming the storm. So begin to watch your reactions, not with judgment, but with curiosity. See how quickly they arise, how strongly they pull you, and then, gently, create a pause. In that pause, you will discover something quiet yet profound, a space where you are free to choose peace over chaos. It is easy to believe that the world around you determines how you feel. When things go well, you feel at ease. When things go wrong, you feel disturbed. This pattern seems so natural that it is rarely questioned. But if you look closely, you will begin to see something deeper. Events themselves are neutral. It is the meaning you give them that shapes your experience. Two people can face the same situation, yet respond in completely different ways. One sees failure, the other sees opportunity. One feels insulted, the other remains unaffected. The event is the same, but the inner experience is different. This difference does not come from the outside world, it comes from interpretation. Your mind is constantly interpreting everything it encounters. It labels, compares, judges, and creates stories. Often, these interpretations happen so quickly that you are not even aware of them. You simply feel the emotion and assume it was caused by the situation. But in truth, the emotion follows the interpretation, not the event itself. When you believe that external events control you, you give away your inner stability. You become dependent on circumstances being a certain way in order to feel calm. But life does not move according to your preferences. It is unpredictable, ever-changing, and often beyond your control. If your peace depends on it, your peace will always be fragile. Understanding the role of interpretation changes this completely. When something challenging happens, instead of immediately reacting, you begin to question the story your mind is creating. Is this situation truly as negative as it appears? Is there another way to see it? What if this moment is not against you, but simply part of a larger process you do not yet understand? These questions create space between the event and your response. They weaken the grip of automatic thinking and allow a more balanced perspective to emerge. This does not mean you ignore reality or pretend everything is positive. It means you stop assuming that your first interpretation is the only truth. The mind often exaggerates, distorts, and jumps to conclusions, especially in moments of stress. When you recognize this, you stop treating every thought as a fact, and this recognition brings freedom. For example, when someone speaks to you in a harsh tone, your mind may immediately interpret it as disrespect. This interpretation triggers anger or hurt. But what if their behavior has nothing to do with you? What if they are dealing with their own struggles? What if their words are simply a reflection of their state, not your worth? By changing the interpretation, you change the emotional outcome. This is not about controlling every thought, but about becoming aware of how powerful your perspective is. When you take responsibility for your interpretation, you take back control of your inner world. You are no longer at the mercy of every situation. Over time, you begin to see life with greater clarity. You understand that events are just events, they do not carry meaning on their own. It is the mind that gives them weight. And if the mind can give meaning, it can also choose to release it. This is where true calmness begins to take root. Because when you are no longer trapped by rigid interpretations, you become more flexible, more open, and less reactive. You stop taking everything personally. You stop resisting what you cannot control. And instead, you meet each moment with a steady and balanced mind. So whenever you feel disturbed, do not immediately look outward. Look inward and ask, what story am I telling myself about this? In that question lies a quiet power, the power to reshape your experience and to remain calm even when life feels uncertain. A disciplined mind is often misunderstood. Many think discipline means restriction, pressure, or forcing yourself into rigid control. But true discipline is not about suppression, it is about alignment. It is the ability to guide your thoughts instead of being pulled by them, to choose your actions instead of reacting unconsciously. And through this guidance, something remarkable happens. You begin to experience a deep sense of freedom. Without discipline, the mind moves in every direction. It chases distractions, clings to negative thoughts, and reacts to every impulse. One moment it is calm, the next it is restless. One moment it is focused, the next it is overwhelmed. This lack of stability creates inner conflict. You may want peace, but your habits pull you toward chaos. You may want clarity, but your attention is scattered. This is not freedom, it is dependency on your impulses. A disciplined mind, however, moves with intention. It does not follow every thought that arises. It observes, chooses, and directs. This does not make life dull or restricted, it makes life clear. Because when your mind is disciplined, you are no longer dragged into unnecessary stress, emotional reactions, or mental noise. Discipline begins with small choices. Choosing to focus on one task instead of jumping between many. Choosing to pause before speaking instead of reacting immediately. Choosing to return to the present moment instead of getting lost in worry. These choices may seem simple, but they are powerful. Each one strengthens your ability to remain steady. At first, it requires effort. The mind resists structure because it is used to wandering freely. It seeks comfort in habits, even if those habits create discomfort in the long run. But when you gently and consistently guide it back, it begins to adapt. What once felt difficult becomes natural. And this is where the transformation begins. As discipline grows, you start to notice a shift in your emotional world. Situations that once disturbed you lose their intensity. You are no longer easily triggered because your mind does not immediately attach itself to every passing thought or feeling. Instead, there is a sense of space, a quiet distance that allows you to remain balanced. This balance is what creates emotional freedom. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you feel in the moment. That kind of freedom often leads to regret, inconsistency, and inner turmoil. True freedom is the ability to remain centered regardless of what you feel. It is the strength to not be controlled by anger, fear, or desire. It is the clarity to act from wisdom rather than impulse. A disciplined mind gives you this freedom. It allows you to experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You can feel anger without losing control, feel fear without becoming paralyzed, feel stress without collapsing under it. Emotions still arise, they are part of being human, but they no longer dominate your actions. Over time, this creates a deep sense of inner strength. You trust yourself more because you know you are not at the mercy of every thought or feeling. You become steady, reliable, and grounded. And from this place, your decisions become wiser, your relationships become healthier, and your life becomes more aligned with your true intentions. So discipline is not something to resist, it is something to embrace. It is the path that leads from chaos to clarity, from reaction to awareness, from limitation to freedom. Train your mind with patience and consistency, not with force, but with understanding. And as your discipline deepens, you will discover something powerful, that the more you master your mind, the more free you truly become. In a world filled with constant noise, movement, and distraction, stillness is often overlooked. Many people associate stillness with inactivity or emptiness, as if nothing valuable exists within it. But in truth, stillness is not the absence of something, it is the presence of clarity. It is in stillness that the mind settles, and when the mind settles, wisdom naturally begins to arise. When the mind is constantly busy, jumping from one thought to another, it becomes clouded. Decisions are made in haste, emotions take control, and confusion grows. It is like trying to see your reflection in water that is being shaken. You will only see distortion. But when the water becomes still, the image becomes clear, without effort. This is the nature of the mind. Stillness allows you to see things as they are, not as your fears or desires distort them to be. It creates a space where understanding can emerge naturally, not forced, not rushed, but revealed. And this kind of understanding is deeper than quick thinking, it is insight. Many of the answers you seek are not found by thinking more, but by thinking less. Not by adding more noise, but by creating space. Yet, because we are so used to constant stimulation, stillness can feel uncomfortable at first. The moment things become quiet, the mind tries to fill the space with thoughts, worries, or distractions. This is where practice becomes essential. To experience stillness, you must learn to sit with the mind without immediately reacting to it. You allow thoughts to come and go without following them. You resist the urge to constantly engage, fix, or analyze. At first, this may feel unfamiliar, even challenging. But with patience, the mind begins to slow down. And in that slowing down, something shifts. You begin to notice that beneath the surface of restless thoughts, there is a quiet presence, a steady awareness that is not disturbed by passing emotions or external events. This awareness is where wisdom resides. It is not loud or forceful, it is subtle, calm, and clear. Wisdom does not shout over the noise, it waits for silence. When you cultivate stillness, you create the conditions for this wisdom to reveal itself. In moments of difficulty, instead of immediately searching for answers outside, you turn inward. You pause, you become still. And from that stillness, a clearer response begins to form. This response is different from impulsive reactions. It is thoughtful, balanced, and aligned with a deeper understanding. It sees beyond the immediate moment and considers the bigger picture. This is why decisions made from stillness often feel more right, more grounded. Stillness also brings a sense of peace that is not dependent on circumstances. Even when the world around you is chaotic, there is a part of you that remains undisturbed. This does not mean you withdraw from life, but that you engage with it from a place of stability. Over time, stillness becomes a natural part of your life. Not something you only seek in quiet moments, but something you carry within you. You begin to move, speak, and act with a calm presence, even in challenging situations. And this is the true power of stillness that connects you to a deeper intelligence within yourself. So do not be afraid of silence. Do not rush to fill every empty moment. Instead, allow yourself to pause, to breathe, to simply be, because in that space, beyond the noise and the constant movement, lies a quiet wisdom waiting patiently to guide you.